G'day, it's Steve here and welcome to Fortress Learning. In this bite-sized tutorial, I'm going to take a look at different assessment methods and how they're used in vocational education. Assessment methods are different processes or activities that are prepared and used to gather specific evidence that allows assessors to determine if a candidate has developed the skills and knowledge requirements of their studies to a competent level. Different assessment methods are selected depending on what skills or knowledge are being assessed and where the assessment is taking place. The evidence that's collected by different assessment methods falls into three categories, which are direct evidence, indirect evidence, and supplementary evidence. Direct evidence is evidence that's been personally observed or witnessed by the assessor. Direct evidence includes things like observation of workplace performance, oral knowledge questioning, and demonstration of skills. Indirect evidence is evidence of a candidate's work that can be evaluated by the assessor, but the assessor did not personally witness the creation of the evidence. Indirect evidence could include finished products, written assignments, or a portfolio of previously completed work samples. Supplementary evidence is additional evidence that has been gathered for the assessor but not by the assessor. Supplementary evidence is used to support the overall assessment of a candidate's competence and includes things like reports, reviews and testimonials from workplace supervisors, colleagues and clients. So let's take a look now at some of the assessment methods that are commonly used to gather different assessment evidence. Let's start with direct observation. This assessment method produces direct evidence, and it's a real-time assessment method that requires a candidate to perform skills-based tasks while being observed by an assessor. Now, depending on the specific assessment conditions of the unit of competency being assessed, the assessment activity could take place in a real workplace or in a simulated environment that reflects workplace conditions. The benefits of this method are that the assessor can see firsthand if the candidate can or cannot competently perform the skills. There's also little or no possibility of plagiarism or cheating, and the candidate can generally receive immediate feedback about their performance. The downside is that the candidate may feel nervous or that they've been put on show, which could potentially affect their performance. Product-based assessment produces indirect evidence and requires the candidate to demonstrate their skills and/or knowledge through the creation of tangible products such as reports, presentations, or product samples. This method of assessment doesn't generally take place under the direct supervision of the trainer or assessor. The benefits of this assessment method are that it encourages personal creativity and a sense of purpose and relevance to the task rather than just the recall of knowledge or replication of a set task. Some disadvantages of this method are that it can be difficult to prove authenticity of the candidate's work, and it can be difficult to determine the time taken to produce the product. Questioning is a method that can produce both indirect and direct evidence depending on whether the questions are written response or if they're asked orally by the assessor. This assessment method is best suited to the assessment of knowledge rather than skills. Now, this is because if someone simply answers a question or explains how to do something, it doesn't demonstrate their ability to physically perform the task. This assessment method can include written or oral questions in the form of quizzes, questionnaires, and may even include activities such as surveys or interviews. The benefit of this method is that well-structured questions can target consistent and specific knowledge amongst candidates, and oral questions can ensure the authenticity of the candidate's knowledge. A disadvantage of written response questions is that depending on how the assessment is conducted, it can be difficult to determine authenticity of the candidate's work. Did they actually answer the questions themselves, or did they get help from someone else? Let's take a look at the portfolio assessment method. This method provides indirect evidence and requires the candidate to gather a collection of evidence such as documents, photos, videos, and logbooks that demonstrate the candidate's application of the required skills and knowledge. The portfolio method is more commonly used in the recognition of prior learning assessment pathway, where candidates gather examples of existing work samples. The advantages of this method are that it can demonstrate application of skills and knowledge over a period of time, and it can eliminate the need for candidates to replicate assessment evidence that they've already got. The disadvantages of this method are that the evidence is not always accessible due to privacy laws and other policies, and it can also be difficult to prove currency and authenticity of the evidence that the candidate submits. The next method of assessment is third-party evidence. This method provides supplementary evidence from a person other than the actual assessor, such as a workplace supervisor, to support the assessment process. Third-party evidence may include things like progress reports, performance reviews, and logbooks that support or complement other evidence that's been gathered by the assessor. Third-party evidence should be used with caution, and it cannot be the exclusive method of assessment. It's still ultimately the role of the assessor to make a judgment about the candidate's competence. The advantages of using third-party evidence are that it can gather additional information that the assessor would otherwise not have access to, and it can assist in making an assessment decision over a period of time without the assessor always needing to be present. A disadvantage of third-party evidence is that it could potentially be difficult to verify the validity and authenticity of the evidence that's been gathered. In this bite-sized tutorial, we've looked at the 5 most common methods of assessment, including direct observation, product-based assessment, questioning, portfolio assessment, and third-party evidence. We also looked at the different forms of evidence that can be collected, including direct, indirect, and supplementary evidence. When choosing assessment methods, it's always important to understand what is being assessed, what evidence is needed, and then select a method that will best capture the evidence for determining a candidate's competence. If you'd like to know more, we have many other bite-sized tutorials that have been designed to give you a clear understanding of the vet sector and how it all works.